Yo, yo, yo. So, what the player, y'all? What's good? What's Gucci, man? Uh, checking those vibes out right. You feel me? Before I go in my hibernation mode for the day. Feel me? Bro. Mm, Gotta look some shit up right. So, as y'all can see by the title, who is really to blame? You feel me? Mm. Yo, what it is? What it is? Mm. We're gonna do a little research, right? Fast, see what the fuck really going on. You feel me? I really wanna get some answers. Boom, 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 boom. So, what about this?
Less than 100 miles from New York City is Plum Island Lab. Here, the U.S. government conducts top secret biological experiments. Most Americans are unaware of the facility, but it has been linked to an Al Qaeda plot and an alarming past tied to Nazi scientists. Military technology expert John Gresham has been denied access to the island. Now he decides to view the lab from the air. Once airborne, it takes less than 2 minutes by helicopter to get from the tip of Long Island to Plum Island. Along the south side of the island are the abandoned ruins of the original lab run by the Nazi scientists. It now appears to be crumbling at the hands of the elements. It's interesting when the elements abandon things they don't really want, something they do want to take down and really take good care of. Then they approach the main lab. There, John can see the measures that the government has taken to keep the facility secure. Very much preceding and storage over here, but clearly is very active. John is left wondering if Plum Island is really the best place to keep a potentially dangerous facility. Back on the ground, John analyzes the video he shot.
This is a vulnerable island. It needs to be looked at and perhaps the facility moved.
The government does plan to move the bioresearch lab to a new facility that would be built in Kansas, but the plan has been stalled.
In so many ways, this is not a facility that folks in this densely populated part of America should be forced to live next to.
For now, Plum Island will remain open indefinitely. The danger of exposure to locals remains unchanged.
Hold on. Did y'all just hear that shit? Hold on, let's run that back. Run that shit back one more time. You dig? I just want y'all to hear that last
Back
thing.
on the ground, John analyzes the video he shot.
This is a vulnerable island. It needs to be looked at and perhaps the facility moved.
The government does plan to move the bioresearch lab to a new facility that would be built in Kansas, but the plan has been stalled.
In so many ways, this is not a facility that folks in this densely populated part of America should be forced to live.
I wonder. Hmm. So Massachusetts, you feel me? Massachusetts, you dig? What y'all got going on in Massachusetts though? What's good? Some fucking bullshit, bro. Quiet ass neighborhood. Plum Island. Do y'all know about Plum Island? And the island is controlled by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Interesting. The island is highly secured and nobody that hasn't been previously authorized can enter the island. Wow. Ooh. The island was previously used in World War II as a research laboratory for biological weapons. Ooh. Today is supposed to be an animal disease center that helps the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The lack of pictures from inside the island and the high security they have makes people doubt this. But what's really mysterious are the creatures that have appeared on the shores near the island. What's really going on? The most well-known report is from a security guard who found a dead man on the shore. They found a dead man on the shore. The dead man was black and was reported by the person who found him to have very long fingers. What are they doing? Unfortunately, there are no pictures or any other evidence of this man. The fuck? In addition to the body, other mysterious creatures have appeared in the shores near the island. What the fuck is going on? Again, I got the only one that got confirmed to be real by the New York Times is the Montauk Monster. So many people believe that the island is used to experiment on animals and humans. Ooh, what you think really is going on? I'm on my push. The U.S. government is considering moving the facility to the deserted area in Kansas to get away from the populated area. Ooh, to this day, it still remains a mystery what is done inside the island and what are those creatures. Hmm. What do y'all think? Do y'all think there's something bigger going on? And what's the play? So Honey Crazy, goddamn, gets arrested. Who's snitching, man? Who working with the police? Somebody done told him. Somebody about to get exposed. But that's neither here nor there. Uh-huh. Lab, lab. Give me that bit. Yes, America's only foreign animal disease laboratory.
Well, thanks to science fiction, if you take the word government and laboratory, automatically there's conspiracy theories and people wondering what we're doing. If you take that and you put it on an island where nobody's allowed to go to, the theories and conspiracies just kind of cycle up. We hear about Nazi scientists and alien technology and DNA modification, and all of it is just absolutely false. The reason why we're here is to keep hamburgers from being $100 a piece.
The fuck? I ain't got nothing to do with nothing. The fuck that shit got it. This nigga just said some hamburgers. Keep hamburgers. The fuck? Hamburgers.
Long Island, a small island off the eastern tip of Long Island, New York, a former Coast Artillery post, is now the U.S. bastion against foreign animal diseases. One thing we don't want people to understand is what we do here is trying to protect the nation's livestock, it protects the food supply and our economy. We do no classified work in Plum Island. All the work that we do, we publish all of our science, everything is very out in the open. The laboratory was built down here over 60 years ago. We wanted to make sure when they built the lab, if we're going to have any live virus, it was not on the mainland, it cannot be spread. The laboratory was built down here on an island.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh yeah.
I'm a veterinarian. Became a veterinarian because I care about people. I care about
Veterinarian.
I care about the food supply. One of the biggest threats to that is a disease like foot and mouth disease that doesn't exist in this country and hasn't been here since 1929. America needs Plum Island because what we do is make sure that foreign animal diseases that don't exist in livestock in the country, are controlled. So if you have a disease like foot and mouth disease, which the last outbreak in this country was 1929, once an animal's infected, it's infected for 3 years. That means you have to kill it, you have to get rid of it. What you have to understand about agriculture is if you go in and kill that herd, you just kill out all the genetic improvements of 100 years. So bringing that back is going to be very difficult. It's estimated that if we had an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in this country, the impact would be over $50 billion just in our first year. It is $180 billion to get our markets back and to get the economy back in the market. And it could be catastrophic depending on how long it could get under control.
Doing research on these pathogens is difficult to do. Yeah, it's sort of exactly what we have to do. And these are places where we can learn about how pathogens change in certain environments or what opportunities we might be providing to pathogens in the world at large. We can kind of recreate that in these extremely secure labs to see how pathogens change. That would give us a huge head start if we could pinpoint where are these pathogens changing in ways that would allow them to have pandemic causing potential. If we could figure that out, then we could potentially contain them before they start to spread.
Plum Island is a very unique place.
many of the research that we're doing, indeed, we are perhaps number one in the world. Our vaccine, the one that we developed, was the first molecular vaccine was against one single, what we call a virus serotype. And South America right now is at the edge of eradicating foot-and-mouth disease using vaccines against that particular strain. There is no one-size-fits-all vaccine for foot-and-mouth disease. One of the main obstacles is actually Mother Nature itself. Similar to what we have in flu, where the virus is ever changing and new viruses coming up, it's not one virus, it's multiple viruses. They behave differently, they change, they don't stay the same for long. One vaccine to address all of those different viruses, it probably will not be possible.
On a scale of 1 to 10 for safety, Plum Island lands at an 11. There hasn't ever been a case of a person coming down with foot-and-mouth disease here at Plum Island, mainly because it's not a zoonotic disease, non-infectious. There are 4 biosafety levels. This lab that we're in right now is a biosafety level 2. You're working with agents that are non-infectious to humans or animals, or that have a vaccine or treatment you can get exposed.
There's some viruses that are in our hot list that we want to have vaccines. And obviously, those are viruses that are currently circulating in areas of high risk. We want to have vaccines that are flexible enough that we can create a new vaccine against that new strain that just came up.
What we do in the animal lanes, which is biosafety level 3, a lot of the work is testing these countermeasures, these vaccines against animals that are infected with foot-and-mouth disease. The animals are checked for the typical foot-and-mouth disease lesion, which is a vesicle generally found on the feet, as well as examining the host and then scoring the animals.
Coronavirus. So they made the coronavirus. Plum Island. I bet you that's where they made that virus at. Plum Island, bro. Hold on. Some fishy going on with your government. Taxpayers' money, dude.
Foot-and-mouth disease vaccine that you can actually manufacture in the United States and you can vaccinate with it. The cost for developing these vaccines, when you look at the impact, you can pay for the cost of this vaccine. This is a $1 trillion recovery. This is talking about the cost of your family's going to pay for it. It's 6 to 8% range. That's what the deficit triples. Families can't afford it. So what motivates me to get up every day is the knowledge that I can make a contribution. I can make a contribution in protecting the health and protecting the livestock and protecting this nation, and make it more secure and improve the quality of life.
Here's our shit. Right there. My name is Carol Clement, and I'm a farmer here at Coleridge Farm. We raise sheep and goats. We have our own breeding stocks of them. We also raise pigs, cattle. We've been running the farm full time for 12 years. I hope you see me. That would be I saw firsthand what it was doing in Ireland and England. The harvesting was handling animals. They thought that was the best way to stop it. So I am very concerned should it ever be here. If I had to slaughter my farm animals because of some kind of disease, it would be a financial disaster. I don't know how any farm survives that. I'm really glad it's still be like Plum Island exists to keep the livestock safe. Research is done and animals are farmed, but fortunately being on an island is that we can't spread problems to neighboring farms. We've got a nice body of water all
But what if they get in the water and then the water travels to where you're at? And what about that? Let's talk about it. The fuck? I not just think, you thought about. Where the hell is the remote at, man? I'm just at that overkill.
being a small farm in the country, we don't have easy access to good vets, I have to find that information myself. I have to diagnose animals and know how to treat them. I have to have remedies on hand to deal with things. So I need more research. I'm glad that the research is being done more locally because a lot of the issues with diseases have to do with the place. Part of the problem that I've seen is that corporations aren't doing research because they don't think they can make a lot of money off it. There are treatments available in other countries that are not available here because no one wants to buy the time to test it. So they don't think they're making off it. So there are things that already exist that corporations here are ignoring that would be really useful.
Although we have not had foot and mouth disease in this country for decades, we do receive samples from other countries. So we do provide capacity building and diagnostic support to other countries where the disease is endemic. And we recently received a request from Korea to help them with their control strategy for the outbreak that they're facing. So we're exploring the venues to support them with vaccines right now. We train field veterinarians in identifying any of these foreign animal diseases. They go to the field and they investigate any suspect cases of foreign animal disease. When they see a potential case, they take samples, and the samples are out here in this helipad. It's extremely intense. Everything is high stakes, so there's a lot of tension. Luckily, we have a really, really qualified staff, so they manage the stress pretty well. The results of these samples is to come out in about 3 to 6 hours. This is extremely important. That's what's going to help us to either stop movement of animals, establish quarantine zones. The public, they don't really understand what it takes to get that steak or chicken in the grocery store. And also, it's cheap.
We identify anything we can activate North American vaccine bank here at Plum.
It turns out the General's quality insurance are affordable rates, and it turns out this isn't a sleeping bag.
And right now, police are investigating a grim discovery on a Plum Island beach. The identity still a mystery at this hour. But everyone, investigators are going to be closely watching the next few tide cycles for any new evidence. Lieutenant Private Sarah Conji explains how the human bones were found. Police sweeping the shore along Plum Island after residents spotted what looked like human bones.
We just out for a walk on the beach with the dog.
It was little Tessa who first found the remains yesterday morning. Her owner, Bill Barrett, describes the gruesome discovery.
We walked over there and I said, no, leave it. And it was the lower half of the lake with still attached. Stop.
Barrett called police who collected the bones for investigation. Then late yesterday, more bones were found further down the beach. So Deputy Chief John Lucy said they launched a search to comb the area.
There was an effort to organize a sweep of this entire area to make sure nothing else conducted right now.
And after 4 hours of searching, police recovered even more remains. They plan to monitor the area during the next few tide cycles.
Maybe exposed it to somebody.
Bill Barrett says the remains he saw appeared to be an adult man.
Could have been a man or a woman, but the sock was big enough to
Investigators with the DA's office.
I look weird on that video, bro. I look like he might be reptilian, bitch. A little bit. He should have had some shades on. I saw that shit.
The remains he saw appeared to be an adult
The hell was
could have been a
that?
man or a woman, but the sock was
That nigga got a split in the middle of his pupil, bro. That bit don't even look right. Nah, it's on the foot.
Investigators with the DA's office, along with the medical examiner's office, will analyze the remains.
So that was what, 6 years ago? That shit crazy. What's this? Part 2. Plum Island, even more dangerous. Carl Crossman, chief investigator.
Right out here. for the most dangerous level of biological research. The Department of Homeland Security, which manages the island, is looking at it as the location for a new National Bio and Agro Defense Facility. This despite the problems for more than 50 years with the Plum Island Animal Disease Center already located on Plum Island. The new facility would operate at biosafety level 4, the highest danger level for biological research. The way the federal government defines it, it involves research into diseases that affect both people and animals for which there are no vaccines or cures. The Department of Homeland Security is bullish about Plum Island as the site for the facility because there's not a lot of livestock hereabouts. On the other hand, Plum Island is smack in the middle of the population center of America, between Boston and New York, just a mile off the northeastern end of Long Island. And there are plenty of people here.
The organization I wish to express our firm opposition to the construction of the National Agro and Biodefense Facility at Plum Island. Just for the record, Group for the East End is a professionally staffed conservation, advocacy, and education organization dedicated to the protection of Eastern Long Island's fragile and diverse environment. Again, the landscape that existed at the time Plum Island was open in the early 1950s has changed dramatically. The population of Suffolk County has grown 450%. To begin with water consumption and quality, the upgrade will require the consumption of more than 36 million gallons of water per year.
Man, I love that
Present water
accent. I
consumption
love
is
that.
17 million gallons per year. The 12 freshwater supply wells that draw from Plum Island are already limited in their capacity by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to help manage the known risk of saltwater intrusion. The installation of the proposed facility would trigger an EPA review to ensure that groundwater is not in danger. We do not believe that DEIS fully investigated the long-term implications of sustained water consumption on Plum Island's limited freshwater aquifers. To move on to air quality, DEIS points out that this site will likely produce something like water of another 140 tons of foreign air pollution each year and every year for the life of the facility. Our region is already a non-attainment area, and we do not feel that this is a prudent proposal. We do not believe that the DEIS adequately reflected the scope of the potential air quality impacts as they relate to the specific policy objectives of our region. To move on to wastewater, DEIS points out that the facility would likely produce as much as 50,000 to 125,000 gallons per day of treated sewage that will have to empty out into the Sound or a sewage treatment facility will need to be constructed.
Here, just as an individual and taxpayer, I think that really important scientific points have been made against putting a level 4 facility in Plum Island. I'm going to just say some things that I think are common sense. We live in a time of rising seas. There is absolutely no question that in the next years to come, seas around us are going to rise. The second is that I'm not old enough to remember the hurricane of 1937. I don't know if anybody else here is of that age, but it tore Fire Island completely in half. Now, we haven't had a really major hurricane here in a very, very long while, but we are too. I think this is a foolish proposal. I think that your work is important. The work that you're doing is important. I think it needs to be done, but it certainly does not need to be done here. Specifically talk about the Millstone nuclear reactors that are just 8 miles away from Plum Island. I confirmed today with the NRSC Region 1 that you are in fact in the emergency planning zone. And generally for nuclear reactors, there's 2 ways it can go with emergency planning. You can either evacuate or shelter. And I would like you to address NRC Millstone addressed in the DEIS whatsoever. So first, I would like you to address the fact that Millstone is situated where it is. The island is in the EPZ, and if you're going to shelter workers or if you're going to evacuate. The other issue is do you have potassium iodide on the island So if there is a radiological release from Millstone, if there is an accident, that they have access to that, and there are policies and procedures in place to make sure it's distributed to the workers. If the policy, if your plan is to evacuate, how are you going to secure the island, and more specifically, pathogens? I think the fact that there is a nuclear power plant just 8 miles off the coast of Plum Island might be a big red flag and say, well, folks, this isn't the best place to do this. And I, like a lot of other people, I'm not crazy that they're doing bio-level safety 3 work there, but we can live with it, as long as you address the GAO issues that have been brought up by others. And I would just like to say, some people had mentioned the anthrax release, and there was an article in the New York Times, I guess a couple of days ago, and sort of in support of the no action at this time. I'm quoting Keith Rhodes, who was an investigator of the GAO, and this was from his testimony at a congressional hearing in October. Nationwide, an estimated 14,000 people work at about 400 laboratories and have permission to work with so-called select agents, which could be used in a bioterror attack. And he goes on to say, with so many people involved, there is insufficient federal oversight of biodefense facilities to make sure the laboratories follow security rules and report accidents that might threaten lab workers or lead to a release that might endanger the public. So I think there was also an article yesterday in the Washington Post, and it talks about how the Mississippi site was put on the short list, even though it ranked 14 out of 17 of the considered sites. So we're going to have a new administration one way or the other, and I think you should put off making a decision until that.
Some of us in this room may remember the Ivory soap commercial of years ago. It went something like this: Ivory soap is 99 and 44/100% pure. I've always wondered about the 0.66% that is perhaps unpure. From a safety and health standpoint, I guess my concern is that if there is any risk at all, and nobody has said that that we are 100% risk-free, why would we want to expose the 110 kids in our school district, K to 6, to any risk that we have control over? Some risks in life we don't have control over, other risks we do have. This is a risk that apparently we have some control over. So that's my question. Why would we want to put kids at risk? Another thought is that I'm told that pathogens are transported by land to the facility. So that means that they go right by our school. I don't know if it's daily or weekly or monthly, but they are transported right past our school.
As the former executive director of the North Fork Environmental Council, I have served on 3 different Plum Island committees on the federal, county, and local levels. There is no disputing the fact that the type of work being done presently on Plum Island, such as the development of cutting-edge diagnostic tools and the creation of vaccines for diseases such as foot and mouth, is essential to national security. But one of the 4 criteria for choosing a site for a biosafety level 4 facility is community acceptance. Our elected officials, from all of our federal representatives to State Assemblyman Mark Alessi, who just spoke a little while ago, to Southold Town Supervisor Scott Russell, all of them have stated their opposition to this upgrade, and with good reason. The issue of an upgrade to a biosafety level 4 facility at Plum Island has been on the table a number of times over the years. Actually, since 1999, when we first learned of a proposed upgrade from an article that appeared in the New York Times. Since then, the community at large has been in strong opposition to an increased intensity of use at the Plum Island facility. Fear and mistrust has been a part of the East End for many years, and a history of accidents, unsafe practices, and lack of conforming to federal and state mandated regulations didn't do much to allay the community's fear. Over the years, the USDA of Plum Island was charged with violating both the Federal Clean Water Act and the Federal Hazardous Waste Law. The facility was charged with exceeding water discharge permit limits, operating without an effective discharge permit for a year, storing approximately 5,000 pounds of hazardous chemicals without obtaining a proper storage permit, along with serious OSHA violations. In 1998, the New York State Attorney General's office filed a statement
Anybody ocean, not ocean.
for a period of 3 years. In 2000, the USDA was operating 3 incinerators without the required state permits, and New York State DEC cited Plum Island for incinerating regulated medical waste in units that were not permitted for this type of waste management. The DEC documented oil spills that contaminated both soil and groundwater. I believe the cleanup of this particular oil spill is still ongoing. Plum Island's track record on environmental issues isn't great, and today's basic safety and security questions remain. We have been told that an evacuation plan isn't necessary for the North and South Forks, but the community at large believe that one is needed. The issue of an evacuation plan has been raised at numerous meetings over the years. Does the CDC in Atlanta have an integrated emergency management plan for evacuating the surrounding area? Also, I'd just like to mention a no-fly zone. The community has asked for that a number of times too, and that still hasn't been addressed. Given the amount of community concern and opposition to a biosafety level 4 facility, I would like to propose that Homeland Security take another look and support and maintain the level 3 facility on Plum Island with its primary purpose of studying foot and mouth disease and citing the biosafety level 4 facility in a more suitable location. Thank you.
Still unclear whether background checks are being conducted on contractors and visitors entering the biocontainment areas. This is particularly alarming because of the recent news of Dr. Bruce Ivins, a biodefense researcher himself was responsible for the anthrax attacks in 2001. According to the GAO report, the USDA had no procedure, referring back to 2003, for ensuring that contractors and visitors entering the biocontainment areas did not have criminal backgrounds. GAO recommended background checks for all individuals using a system such as the one used by the National Crime Information Center. The report states that DHS was developing a memorandum of agreement with the FPS, which is the Federal Protective Service, but had not been finalized due to budget concerns. Has the memorandum of agreement been executed, and are background checks being conducted? The report goes on to state that the DHS has not fully implemented our recommendation that the department ensure that individuals involved in laboratory activities in the biocontainment area, including students and regardless of citizenship, be approved in accordance with the law. Furthermore, background checks are not being conducted on students, and this is a deliberate decision. Skip over a couple of things that they do require students to do, but any remaining risk, quote, is acceptable according to the USDA. A severe threat to animal health and the economy. I agree strongly with the DAO conclusion that anyone interested in doing harm and who had access to the biocontainment areas could walk away with valuable information, including lab layout procedures, etc. And I do not feel that all of these issues have been thoroughly addressed at this time. I'm prompted to ask who is creating the acceptable risk status of any given security plan, which is finally implemented.
Gotta start going to City Hall.
Yes, but we're not going to reside on Plum Island. I would hope that virus would be contained. Limited numbers. Plum Island works with animal diseases, not a primary place of research for human diseases. However, some diseases, some viruses infect both animals and man. But those, I can tell you, are worked with in the minority.
Now, Plum Island has been criticized during your tenure as the director and afterwards. Do you think Plum Island has gotten above ground?
Oh, I wouldn't want to comment on that.
Do you think there's been some, what can I say, paranoia or unjustified fear in terms of Plum Island through the years?
I think there's an unjustified uneasiness about
possibility of pathogens which are infectious for man, getting from the island to let's say Long Island. However, you must consider that Plum Island is a facility for research on animal diseases, not human diseases. Research on human diseases, including those which are P4, are done at CDC in Atlanta, in the middle of the town of Atlanta, across the street from a motel where I have been a frequent guest.
Do you ever open the windows of that motel, Doc?
The rooms were air conditioned.
In any event, you feel it's a perhaps safer facility for BSO?
Hold on.
I think it's the same.
Hold on. These people just pull me for a loop. So they say CDC is right across the street from a motel in Atlanta. That's the one where they're doing research on human pathogens and all that shit. Hold on, let's keep going. I don't want to continue with this bullshit. This was published August 17th, 2008.
It's not in a livestock area.
But it's not in a livestock area, but it's in an area between Boston and New York, the population center of America.
But Plum Island doesn't work with human diseases. Plum Island works with animal diseases.
But it's BSL-4, it would work with diseases that affect both animals and
This man
people.
got the same argument for every question, bro.
I don't share your concern for the.
I would have went to the next person.
I think it's the proper
What's the
place
dude's name though?
for Homeland Security to build their new facility.
Supervisor, what do you think about Plum Island becoming a biosafety level 4 facility?
I'm against it. I'm certainly supportive of the island in its current format with its current charge and mission as a bio-3 facility. A bio-4 facility, that's not the right location for it. We're next to a metropolitan area. The idea of pathogens that have overwhelming consequences to human population shouldn't be tolerated near a metropolitan area.
And one of the arguments as to why it should be on Plum Island is that some of these other finalists in the selection process are in areas where there's a lot of animals, and it could affect livestock in the United States. Well, there's not that much in the way of livestock in this area.
That's right, but yeah, then you have to reconsider why they're considering putting all their research eggs in one basket. In other words, the proposal is for an NBAT facility, this new super research facility. It makes no more sense locating human pathogens on Plum Island than it would to locate hoof and mouth disease in the middle of the cattle population of Texas. That's the proposal that's on the table, is to put all their research eggs in one basket. I'm against that. I haven't seen anything that's environmentally or economically or even science driven that would suggest that's a good idea. They have separate facilities pursuing separate missions. I think that's worked well historically.
If the Department of Homeland Security, with a mandate to deal with security, says, no, Plum Island is the choice, and President Bush signs off on that before he leaves office, which appears to be the plan in this selection process, what can be done?
I don't know if that's the plan or not. I'm a little bit more optimistic than that. I do think they'll have a process that'll try to find a finalist. I hopefully in a coming new administration like to see the whole prospect and idea of an NBAF go away. I don't think it's needed nationally.
I mean, not necessarily he's signing off on Plum Island that could occur, but signing off on one of the 6 finalists. You think it's not going to happen in coming months, as the Department of Homeland Security indicate?
I hope not. Any federal official I've talked to indicates to me that might not, hopefully will not be the scenario. Of course, if Plum Island is picked and our hand gets forced, we'll pursue what options we can to stop it.
Let me just be a devil's advocate. On these issues of protecting our livestock, protecting against bioterrorism, I mean, all parts of the country are supposed to do their part.
Right.
What's your argument in terms of your area of Long Island maybe not doing its part?
No, we're doing our part. Plum Island has been a neighbor of ours for 50 years. They serve a vital role. It's still important to this country. It's important to this world. I'm a proud host of Plum Island as a facility in my town. I'm a proud host of their history here. But as a bio-3 facility, it still serves a vital role. I think it needs to be invested in, and its role expanded under the aegis of a bio-3 facility.
but Bio4 is just a line that shouldn't be crossed.
That's off the table for me, yes.
State Senator Ken Lavelle, how do you feel about the Plum Island facility being upgraded to biosafety level 4?
Here we go again, and we've always been opposed to it. I've been opposed to it. Community has been opposed to it. Today, we've listened to Plum Island people talk about what they do at level 3, and I'm leaving with some concerns at level 3. We get to level 4, I don't believe there will be an elected official that would support level 4, but I'm speaking for myself and I'm opposed.
What are your issues with level 4? Why are you against it?
Well, I think, we're dealing with very, very serious things. Whether we're talking about Shoreham or other kinds of issues, we are an island, and evacuation, it becomes very, very important. We have an aquifer that we're trying to protect. There are issues about things possibility getting into our water. We've heard today about different things emitted into the atmosphere, even though they're burned at extreme heats. So I think that there are a lot of concerns for people in a more populated area. Level 4, it would seem to me, would be acceptable in areas where you literally have lots of miles between the facility and the people. So I don't think this is a good fit for a level.
The proposed upgrade to biosafety level 4 facility would change it a lot, wouldn't it?
Well, basically, they're going through a process right now with 6 sites, and they would build a brand new facility, not the facility they were currently in. So if Plum Island was selected among those 6 facilities, they would build an entirely new laboratory at Plum Island.
As I understand biosafety level 4, it involves diseases that affect both animals and humans for which there are no cures or vaccines.
What you have to understand about biosafety levels is there's 4 different levels. We currently operate under 3 of them at Plum Island right now. And what they're all about is protecting the scientists. And so if we have an unknown agent come in, or we don't know, or we have one come in that kills animals and humans, a biosafety level 4 gives us the ability to protect our scientists. And as we know, emerging pathogens, new diseases coming up, a biosafety 4 would give us the capability to send in a scientist that was reported with an agent that killed people and animals. They could study that.
And the scientists would work in sort of like spacesuit-like garb?
The scientists could choose to either work with a glove box, where you have an enclosed glove box where you go into the facility and stick your hands in and manipulate the sample, or the person could go into a positive pressure suit that they would put on.
Now, the Department of Homeland Security seems boosterish on having Plum Island for this facility, based on there being not much livestock in this area. While there's a lot of livestock in the sites of the other 5 finalists. On the other hand, if some of these diseases also affect people too, and they're serious, life-threatening diseases with no known cures or vaccines, and there's so many people in this area, I mean, just consider the megalopolis between Boston and New York, and here's Plum Island right in the middle. Don't you think Plum Island might be a risky place for a biosafety level 4 facility?
I think that Plum Island provides some additional security for diseases such as foot and mouth disease that are transmitted by aerosol. But I think it demonstrates by CDC being in the middle of Atlanta that you can operate these biosafety level 4 labs safely in an environment, because technology is today that you can remove these viruses and bacteria and other agents with the technology that we have in our new laboratories. Technology has improved a lot since we first built 54 years ago.
The draft environmental impact statement, the Department of Homeland Security says that accidents will happen no matter what efforts are made to prevent them. They'll occur. Do you agree with that?
They are inevitable. So my question.
What you have to remember is that these facilities are not risk to the community. The risk is to the scientists.
can have people that go to the hospital, they can have deadly flu, they can be in isolation in the hospital, but there are no pressing people that are dead. We live, however, in an age of terrorism, and here's Plum Island, a very exposed island in the middle of a lot of marine traffic. I mean, it's 10 miles or so from London, a mile and a half off eastern Long Island. A terrorist could rather easily land on it. I'm not letting out any secret. So, the government accountability office. Problems. But with that, not rare. Take what you have to look at it. Plum Island was built 54 years. One of the biggest that end.
Admirable track record, only one outbreak. One outbreak that's on foul. Capping us, crackers, bro. Capital, capital, capital. Cracker don't even go to the white person, bro. Cracker was the person that was with the whip, bro. Cracker slave terminology. Why you love that bit ugly?
And another thing, there is not the levels.
Bio safety level 4. Boy, yeah. What's good? What's good? What's Gucci, man? Y'all tapping in, y'all tapping out, y'all tapping in, y'all tapping out with Gucci. So who's to blame? We blame the government? Attack the Bushes? What about George Bush? Let's see what George Bush bitch has been up to. The real Plum Island. Nah, bro. Fuck that shit. Seven years ago. for 00 Negro.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for inviting me, to Shauna as well, and Alden Farrow, the publicist at Yale who set this up. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's my first time in the Spy Museum, which I just saw today for the first time, and it's fantastic. I don't know how many exhibits, but there's even a link to what I'm going to be presenting that I didn't know was going to be there in the James Bond exhibit. So I'll mention that later. Oh, you took mine.
There's a brush pass.
Oh, look, very good with intelligence. And so, yeah, and I'm very happy to see a few of my former students in the audience who have obviously done very well. They're now living in DC doing various things. So thanks for coming to my former Stetson colleagues. As you see, this is the title, and I'd like to start, and I'm going to proceed this way tonight with a little bit from the book, and then talk through some of the context, and then read some other passages rather than give a formal talk. So I'm going to start with the first paragraph of the book. So early in the blockbuster movie Captain America: The First Avenger, many of you have probably seen, a Nazi officer enters a small Norwegian town in search of an ancient relic, the Tesseract. You can see the Tesseract in a couple iterations up there. The Tesseract promises its owner infinite power. It's a cosmic artifact of sorts. We soon find out that the officer, Johannes Schmidt, has imbibed the prototype of a super soldier serum developed by a fringe or border scientist, we'll get to that later, named Abraham Erskine. You see Erskine there in the original 1940 comic book.
Intended to give Schmidt superhuman strength and agility, the serum instead, it's in a prototype form, he should have taken it, causes a monstrous transformation, driving the Nazi officer mad and turning his head into a ghastly red skull. Hence, the supervillain, one of the first in Marvel comic book history, the Red Skull. Erskine escapes to America, where he perfects his serum, and that happens to the best of us, don't worry. Transfiguring the prototypical 98-pound weakling, there you see him, Steve Rogers, into our hero. Now, Captain America has little time to hone his combat skills before confronting the Red Skull and the insidious occult society known as Hydra, which it turns out pulls the strings behind Hitler and the Third Reich. Kind of an analogy to Spectre downstairs in the Green Fund exhibit. Now, if you notice, I just wanted to point this out. Baron von Strucker, who's the head of Hydra, and he's in the second of Avengers movie, I believe, at the beginning of that. That's what it looks like in the Marvel movie. Very similar to the Wavelsburg, which is Himmler's order castle, where he has Grail ceremonies and a black sun, just to show you the fiction and history coming together. And that's really the point of starting with Captain America. Captain America contains all the elements of Nazi supernaturalism in popular culture. The connection to occult forces, mad scientists, fantastical weapons, a superhuman master race, a preoccupation with pagan religions, and magical relics supposed to grant the Nazis unlimited power. And of course, the pagan religion stuff comes back with Thor and Loki fighting over the Tesseract, and Thor, the Nordic god, has to take it from his evil brother Loki and bring it to Asgard for protection. You all hear me all right? Excellent. So from comic books produced during the Second World War, so while the Nazis are still in power.
You can skip this ad, or you can skip town with Kayak.
Through 21st century video games like Castle Wolfenstein, from classic science fiction and adventure films like Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Boys from Brazil, to contemporary horror movies like Dead Snow or Hellboy, or superhero franchises like The Avengers and Captain America, our popular culture is awash with these images of the Nazi supernatural, right? Now, we don't have time today, and that's why I decided to kind of focus to talk about the entire history of Hitler and the occult, right? This book has 9 chapters. They all deal with different aspects of what I just kind of laid out there. So what I thought we'd do, and then leave the rest for question and answer, is I'd give you some background on the historical relationship between Nazism, occultism, what I'm calling border science, or what they call border science. Then, using some context from the book itself, look at 3 case studies from one chapter, chapter 7, of the Third Reich utilizing border science and occultism for the purposes of military intelligence and propaganda. They did actually use it for purposes that this museum would find very interesting. So I chose those case studies. And then if we have time, I'll bring up a couple other examples. And then we can, in the question and answer, talk about more expansive things. So for example, traditional occultism, kind of these doctrines like theosophy. How many of you have heard of theosophy or anthroposophy, right, or Ariosophy? Those kind of broader occult doctrines I won't talk about much initially, nor will I talk about pagan or folkish religion, though that's a major part of the book. I will focus more on what they call Grenzwissenschaft or border science. And so that's what I'd like to do. So let's start with the historical relationship between Nazism and the supernatural. Now, depending on what your background is, you may recognize some of these individuals or writers. And I just want to rip off of this quote from Alfred Rosenberg. Alfred Rosenberg was the ideological czar of the Nazi Party. He was the one who wrote long essays and tomes about what Nazi ideology was, what was wrong with the conventional bourgeois world, the church. And until very recently, people would have characterized Rosenberg and many Nazi leaders, and we'll get to that, as being, I'm talking about mainstream historians, is very disinterested in the occult, right? And one of the ways I got a contract for the book is after one of the early proposals got a peer review, he said, well, this is all fascinating, but this nothing, there's no history there. I forwarded this quote from Rosenberg himself, and you can see the quote. The success of National Socialism, the unique appearance of the Fuhrer, has no precedent in German history. The consequence is that many Germans, due to their proclivity for the romantic and the mystical, indeed the occult, came to understand the success of National Socialism in this fashion. And he goes on from there. So what is Rosenberg arguing? The reason we were successful is Germans are fascinated by the occult and they associate us with that. Now we'll go on to say that's not necessarily a good thing, but that's a pretty, if you're looking for an archival source saying there's a story to tell, this is a good one. And he was not alone. So Rosenberg gleaned this. Lothar Eisner, who you see up there, Theodor Adorno, both associated with the Frankfurt School of kind of social, scientific, and cultural criticism in the 1920s. They both argued very openly that Nazism drew on occult thinking, supernatural thinking, esoteric thinking. I have a lot of that in the book. She was a film critic who looked at, like her colleague Siegfried Krakauer, another Frankfurt School film critic. You heard of the book From Caligari to Hitler? It's a study of expressionism. Anyway, kind of film scholars often cite that book. He and Eisner both argue that the expressionist trend in German culture, the kind of fascination with horror and the macabre, authoritarian personalities, paved the way for Hitler. Adorno said occultism, like anti-Semitism, which is based on what seems like a science but it's really faith-based, religious, mystical thinking, is exactly what facilitated Nazism. So there's a lot of contemporary intellectuals who made that argument. And then Rudolf von Sobotendorf, who we don't have time to go into today, he argued 1933, the Nazis came from his movement, his occult movement, and the Thule Society, which he co-founded. Some of you might have heard of the Thule Society, the Thule Gesellschaft. We've got Rosenberg, and we've got Rauschning, a guy who wrote a book about interviews he had with Hitler. So there was a very powerful contemporary belief that the Nazis were wrapped up with occult, border science, and pagan religion. And then you get this first generation of what we call historiography, which is the kind of the interpretations that historians make about the past. And some of these are very good scholarly works like Mosa, Stern, and Goodrich Clark's The Cult Roots of Nazism, which focuses on one secret area called really the Ariosophists, which I'll talk about briefly today. Others like The Morning of the Magicians is kind of crypto history, like Trevor Ravencroft's Spear of Destiny. I don't know if you've heard of that as well. But all of a sudden, you get this efflorescence in the 60s and 70s of a belief that Nazism is based in the occult, right? Some of it's good history, some of it's not. But all of a sudden, this contemporary idea, after maybe 15 or 20 years of kind of incubation, becomes a very popular trope.
At Tires Plus, you're in the driver's seat. We know that when it comes to buying tires, the options seem endless. That's why we narrow it down to the best tires for your vehicle. And you pick which works best for you. Only at Tires Plus.
All right.
So quantum biology, I suspect from that cheer we got at the beginning that all I need to say is QB for this crowd. Light, complex, but quantum, that's what we're here to talk about. And in a moment, we're going to talk
extraordinary scientists and physicists who, let's just say, have a bit of an anxiety about quantum mechanics, and I think we can help you with that. Let's just give it up, first of all, for the biology here in the room. Clap if you are a biological entity. That's nice. Now, it didn't sound to me as though everyone clapped. If you're not a biological entity, please clap. Hunter College, right? Hey, Joe. Sure. So with deference to all of these cyborgs in the room, we are, the rest of us anyway, biological creatures, and as such, we share a certain kind of wisdom about how things work and how quirkily things can sometimes work. And while the physicists in this room would have us all believe that quantum mechanics is a little terrifying, it's kind of a tangle of irreconcilable phenomena, goes against Newtonian and relativistic concepts of the universe, waves and particles, insane discontinuities of one kind or another, probability, God throwing dice, oh my goodness, particles that jump energy levels without warning, a freaky merger of local phenomena and non-local events, where connections between things seem to exist. How did this be, physicists say? We can help them so, because when quantum mechanics entered the world of physics, it was like this elephant in the room, really. I mean, if the elephant were a neutrino, though, and was invisible, and then visible, and then an elephant sometimes maybe more of a rhinoceros, depending on who or what was looking at it, that's the anxiety of quantum mechanics. We're going to sort this out. It's the sort of thing that makes physicists crazy, but as biological creatures, let's hold our hands together. Come on, all of us. Biological entities hold our hands together and try to reassure the physicists that we understand some packets of energy that appear out of nowhere and change everything and then disappear again. We understand this. Jeremy Lin, right? Right? Physicists go insane when things are calculated to be one value and then suddenly turn out to be something totally different. We understand this. We just call it the Facebook IPO, right? Or when in the quantum world things defy any level of predictability at all, watching them more closely in this state, it makes them more likely to deliver really scary surprises. We understand this. We just call it North Korea. Physicists hate it when things seem to behave no known laws of physics, but we see this sort of thing all the time. We understand it. It's Donald Trump's hair, right? I mean, what is going on with that hair? Obeying no known laws of physics. Finally, quantum mechanics suggests that objects can act across time and space with no apparent connection. I mentioned this a moment ago, as though they're part of some vast secret conspiracy. Now, why is that so? We've understood for centuries the secret conspiracies that control all of us, right? In God we trust. Yeah, I believe that. Sure. So, together as biological entities, we have a sense, an intuitive sense of the quirkiness of the universe. And in this fusion of biology and quantum mechanics, you may have more knowledge than you think. Of course, there are some of you here, the QBs in the audience, who will laugh at all the right points and will nod when some of the physicists get a little mysterious. Just turn to them and say, what's going on? Or perhaps I can help. All right. Tonight, let's look at the examples of life and biology we kind of grew up with. We're going to leave this here as a bit of an example for what we're going to be talking about tonight. We are taught in our science classes that, life is a complicated system of chemical molecules and atoms and interactions between phenomena that become very, very complex and beautiful, but always ordered. Yet, what we're going to learn tonight is that because of quantum mechanics, some of these little balls can detach and disappear and do things unpredictably, and that in fact, animals and biological systems take advantage of the ability to disappear in two places at once, doing two things at once. These orderly molecules can sometimes look. All right? And that's what we're going to explore tonight. We're going to do it in very concrete ways with phenomena that you can relate to. For instance, it's not well known why birds are able to navigate and go from one place in the world to the other, because they can't see perfectly all the time, and they don't have radar, as you detect what is it that's going on in their complicated brain cells that allows them to explore that, right? There may be an explanation of all that. And then, of course, on a much more basic level, the mystery and ubiquity of something called photosynthesis. It's why life is here. Photosynthesis, how plants take light and turn it into energy. Now, we're taught that that's understood. In fact, it's not so well understood as your science teacher may have believed. And a quantum synthesis is one of the most exciting things happening in either biology or physics. So, this is going to be a wild ride. Get ready. Here we go. Quantum biology, folks. Welcome to the stage, the first person to develop a realizable model.